Žavingi ir gundantis gražuolių atvaizdai. Baugios ir juokingos pamėklių istorijos. Nuožmus ir narsus samurajų žygdarbiai. Istorinė panoraminė paroda Japonijos popkultūros tradicija nuo Edo laikotarpio Ukiyo-e iki 20-21 amžiaus mangos, anime ir superfratų. Nacionalinė dailės galerija iki spalio 13 dienos. Rėmėjai, informaciniai partneriai.
Thank you for joining us today. I thank you for the invitation and the introduction. I would also like to express my gratitude for the support of Ukraine and for the opportunity to present our museum treasures and cultural heritage in Lithuanian Museum. And also I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be part of this excellent exhibition. Today, I want to tell you about 3 cases. Example of appropriation and inclusion of Japanese object and art elements in the interiors of houses and fine arts in Ukraine, the development of scientific research in Japanese studies and the learning of Japanese culture from the 19th century, and the history of the museification of Japanese art and the popularization of Japanese culture in Ukraine, again from the 19th century to the present. It's no accident that the 19th century was the beginning of Ukrainians' acquaintance with Japan, although Japan's items and news about the country had been brought here sporadically before, mainly by sailors. But the opening of Japan to the world exhibition, for example, in Paris, and the increasing flow of Japanese goods to Western countries led to another surge in interest in Asian culture, especially in objects associated with luxury and beauty. Screen lacquerwares, fans, silk clothes, furniture, and porcelain, of course. After Japan opened to the world, and as a result, the flow of Japanese goods to Western countries increased, Japanese items began to find their way to the territory of modern Ukraine and into the interiors of wealthy Ukrainian citizens. Interior design with elements of Asian and Japanese decor and also penetrated Ukrainian estates and was a proof of progressiveness and good taste. Unfortunately, the destruction caused by Soviet regime, world wars, and predatory builders destroyed a number of architectural monuments in Ukraine. That is why we have only one surviving example of interior decoration in the so-called Japanese style, the painting of Japanese hall in a house in Samchiki, Khmelnytsky region, as you can see on this slide. The murals are a mix of Ukrainians' perception of Far Eastern culture. There are syncretic motifs from Chinese and Japanese art combined with images of local and Eastern flora and Western ornaments on a golden background. As you can see, it's some Makart or Klimt style. Opposing stereotypes and deepening knowledge about Japan began in scientific and educational institutions of Ukraine. One of the pioneers who laid the foundations of Ukrainian Japanese studies was professor of the Kharkiv University, Andrei Krasnov, botanist, doctor of geography, as you can see on the slide. He headed the Department of Geography and Ethnography at Kharkiv University in 1889-1912. In 1892, Krasnov visited Java and Japan. 3 years later, he participated in tea expedition, having visited Ceylon, the southern slopes of the Himalayas, China, and Japan. As a result of these travels, he bought a unique ethnographic collection, a significant part of which presented the culture and lifestyle of Japan. Krasnov devoted essays to his travels that were printed in the book of the week edition, which were later published as separate books under the title One of the Islands of the Far East, Travel Essays, 1895, and from the Cradle of Civilization, Letters from a Trip around the World, 1898. The second publication has become the result of the second round the world trip of the countries of Asia, in which the scientific introduce readers to almost all spheres of Japanese culture and life. On the pages of the book, he also described various crafts, in particular the technology of manufacturing porcelain and lacquer, architecture of temple complexes. Rethinking the impressions and knowledges he received, Krasnov published a series in 1904-1905 articles in the daily newspapers of Slobozhanщина, Южный край, South Place. Slobozhanщina region contain Kharkiv region, Sumy region, and also Lugansk and Donetsk region. So it's a historical term of this part of Ukraine, Slobozhanщina. By the way, I was born in Kharkiv, so I'm from Slobozhanщina region. In the following text, the author introduced readers to the popular culture of Japan. In the publication Evening with Geishas, the scientist described in detail his visit to, quote, one from the aristocratic tea houses of Kyoto, where noble Japanese went to spend the evening in communication with beauties. During his travels in Japan, Krasnov personally collected art samples, which later became the basis of the Japanese collection of the ethnographic department of the Kharkiv Art and Industry Museum, founded in 1886, later the Kharkiv City Art and Industrial Museum. Among Japanese household items, clothing and craft tools, object of spiritual, literary, and artistic creativity, Japanese people and represented by a collection of books, newspapers, caricatures, and among other things, delicately artistic embroidery, monkeys clinging to each other and depicted on silk fabric. To spiritual subjects, the author also included items of religious worship as part of his work, images of the goddess Mercy, bronze idols, and a Buddhist goddess. In 1902, a guide of the Kharkiv City Art and Industrial Museum was published in Kharkiv, which contained a complete list of items from the ethnographic department. Unfortunately, the items in the Japanese collection are not described in detail. Moreover, some of them are presented mixed with Chinese ones, which makes their attribution difficult. We can only assume that the Japanese incense burner from the founds of the Kharkiv Historical Museum, founded in 1912, which became one of the museum heirs in Soviet times, in one of the items in Krasnov collection. Unfortunately, information about the collection in the City Museum after its disbandment in January 1920 is not traceable. A large part of the museum collection of the Kharkiv Art Museum, which became the heir of this collection, as and most of the archival documents were lost during the Second World War. A netsuke depicting the god of happiness, Daikoku, was also originally kept in the collection of the Kharkiv Historical Museum. Most of the work have since been lost. The vase, as front of you on the slide, is one of the few things that survived. So, as you can realize, most art pieces of the Krasnov collection are lost today. Another important event in Ukrainian Oriental studies is related with All Ukrainian Scientific Association of Orientalists, established in 1926. Historians and art historians, ethnographists, philologists, and economists in Ukraine joined the association, which has established contact with the Imperial Academy in Tokyo and several other Japanese scientific institutions. In 1926, the association opened Eastern language courses in Kharkiv and Kyjive. In Kharkiv, there was a Japanese language department with 69 students. Fedor Pushchenko, a philologist and teacher of Japanese, and Alexander Kremena worked there. In 1926, Pushchenko published the first Ukrainian textbook of Japanese, which he had written in 1918. He also wrote an article on Japanese writing and translated several Japanese fairy tales: The Frog from Osaka and The Frog from Kyoto, The Matsuyama Candle, and The Name of the Cat. Alexander Kremena was a geographer and literary critic. In 1931, he published the work Japanese Lyrics of the Feudal Era, which included his translations of classical Japanese poetry into Ukrainian. An important stage of this initiative was the publication of the periodical Oriental World, which, after being renewed in 1990s, is still published. Between 1927 and 1931, the journal published 11 articles devoted to Japan. Another periodical that published articles about Asian culture, particularly Japan culture, was journal Sesvit. You can see on the slide two titles, first titles of this journal by 1988 and 1928 and 1929. In 1929, a number of articles were published of cultural events, including exhibition of Oriental art and Japanese collections. Among them, the article by prominent Ukrainian Orientalist Vsevolod Zumer about the exhibition Art of the East, organized by the Kharkiv Art and History Museum and the All Ukrainian Scientific Association of Orientalists, deserves special attention. The scholar says that the exhibition consisted of 3 sections: the halls of the Far and Middle East, as well as the art of the Turkish people. In the same year, Sesvit, magazine Sesvit or Universe, as you can see, reported of an exhibition of Japanese children's books organized by the Society for Cultural Relations with Foreign Countries and the State Academy of Arts. The exhibition Momotara, Isumboshi, and the Sparrow with a Cut Tongue, which was held in the several Ukrainian cities in 1929, was named after the most popular characters in Japanese children's fairy tales. As the author of the review notes, the exhibition featured a variety of printed publications that used the techniques of ancient Japanese graphics and modern technical achievements, collections of dolls in traditional Japanese costumes, and children's drawings. The author's summary of the notes is also interesting. For the first time, we have in Japan with a serial sculpture without boring chrysanthemums. I don't know, he can't stand chrysanthemums. Ukrainian artists studying in various European countries or traveling in Europe collected and were inspired by Eastern objects. By the way, before 1917, where in the Kyiv were established a fine arts academy, mostly Ukrainian artists studied in München, in Krakow, in Paris, and other European universities and academies in different European cities. According to the art historian Fedor Ernst, among the large number of porcelain and earthenware objects of Vasil Krichevsky collection of works were high art Chinese, Japanese, Saxon Copenhagen porcelain. Reference to Japanese products in the collection of Vasil Krichevsky are also found in the memoirs of his wife Yevgenia. 2 tables, one of which under the window was a work table. A force of small things was collected: Copenhagen and Japanese porcelain, copper and silver Dutch candlesticks with garlands, roses, Italian maiolica, Japanese enamel vases. What the interior of Krichevsky residence looked like is illustrated on the slide. Here we also see objects from different cultures, possibly including Japanese. As you know, since the 1860s, several directions have so excited in fine art, one of which is defined as Japanism. Ukrainian artists also did not stand aside from the new trend. The slide shows the works of 2 of them, Oleksa Novakivsky and Mykola Burachik. Oleksa Novakivsky, under the influence of Professor Leon Wichulkovsky and his fellow student Wojciech Vas, who belonged to the circle of Japanese innovators in Krakow, adapted fashionable variants of portrait representation in the genre of bidinga, pictures of beauty, and its subgenre Ukiyo-e, big heads, in this portrait of woman in kimono. Mykola Burachik adopted the popular worldview concept part instead of the whole, pars pro toto, which spread into the practice of young Polish landscape painters, though the Japanese genre birds and plants, kachoga. Private collection also played an important role in spreading knowledge about Japanese and Eastern culture in Ukraine. Collecting was considered a noble activity. Among the cities, Kyjive, Odessa, and Kharkiv had the largest number of private collections, thus 26 in Kyjive in Odessa, and 22 private collection in Kharkiv. The penetration of Japanese into the west of Ukraine was largely due to the activities of the Krakow critic, writer, and collector Felix Jasensky, who lived in Lviv for some time. As you know, Lviv was the part of Poland, so for some time. In 1901, it was possible to see part of this collection of Japanese art, which consisted of about 6,100 objects, residents of Warsaw, Krakow, Lviv, and in other cities. The Japanese part of Felix Jasensky collection consisted of silks and painted screens, ceramic and porcelain products, silk kimonos, weapons, armor for famous armor for weapons, etc. But the largest group consists of prints of Ukiyo-e and the most famous Japanese artists: Hokusai, Hiroshige, Furunobu, Utamara, Utagawa Kuniyoshi, Utagawa Kunisada, Utagawa Toyokuni, and others. In the autumn of 1901, at the Society of Friends of Fine Arts in Lviv, Jasensky opened an exhibition of Japanese graphics. Thanks to the playwright and theater critic Jan August Kiselewski, the public of Poland, including Lviv, saw the first the Japanese theater troupe in 1902. Kiselewski met Japanese actress and geisha Saba Yako and her husband Otojiro Kawakami in Paris in the beginning of the 20th century, who introduced the No theater to the Western public and also Lviv public. As for private collection, the first systematically formed collection of Japanese art and Eastern art appeared in Kyiv thanks to the collecting and patronage activities of Bohdan and Varvaros Chanenko. The Chanenkos housed the collection in their estate, which is now one of the 2 buildings of our Chanenko Museum. The museum archives hold Bohdan Chanenko's handwritten entry and the inventory of Eastern items purchased in 1912 in Paris and the Drouot Hotel auction. The list shows the purchase of prints by famous masters of Japanese Ukiyo-e, purchased from Morita and the Hotel Drouot in 1912. As for the origin of the Japanese art in the museum, according to the latest research by my colleagues Olga Apenko and Katerina Varanovska, we managed to identify a number of Ukiyo-e works purchased by Chanenkas from Morita. The colleges studied the auction catalog from 1912, in which they identified several prints, one of which you can see on the slide. It's Utagawa Torihira, two manzais. Here is notes about Chanenkas. So now we know about near 20 objects that my colleagues can identify from this auction. How the Chanenka exhibited Oriental objects, in particular Japanese art, can be illustrated by the ceramics in the so-called Delft dining room of the house. The name is associated with the large faience vases from Delft and the interior in the style of the Dutch Burger house. You can see that the Chanenkas didn't divide their artworks into separate countries and cultures. Japanese porcelain was exhibited alongside objects from China, Ukraine, Iran, and the Dutch Republic. The Chanenkas wanted to showcase the diversity of cultures in one space, even though the design of the room was Western. Therefore, the collector's approach here is Eurocentric, inspired by common European tastes. In the 1930s, the processes of exterminating the Ukrainian intelligentsia, including the Kharkiv and Kyjive School of Eastern Studies, as well as artists whose work did not conform to the Bolshevik policy, began. First, the All Ukrainian Scientific Association of Orientalists was liquidated, and in 1931, the journal Oriental World was closed. In 1934, the periodic Всесвіт Universe, the last publication to publish materials on the culture and life of Japan, stopped its activities for a long time. Most scholars who had devoted their research to the study of Eastern culture were repressed, accused of spying and anti-Soviet and counter-revolutionary activities and nationalist manifestations. The Chanenka Museum, which opened a postgraduate course and an Eastern department headed by Maria Veslitina, hosted exhibition of Asian art, including an exhibition of Far Eastern art, for which Polina Hudalova-Kulzhenka prepared a guide about Japanese ukiyo-e prints, also faced repression. The Eastern department was closed and Maria Vesmitina was banned from researching. Eastern studies in Ukraine were gradually restored after the Second World War, starting with China, with which the USSR had friendly relations. As for Japan, interest was renewed in 1950s. This was partly due to the wave of sympathy for the Japanese after the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The sources that nourished interest in Japan in Soviet times were rare editions of Japanese art and films by Akira Kurosawa. The Chanenka Museum was renamed the Kyiv Museum of Western and Eastern Art because Chanenka's name was banned under Soviet rule. The museum was undergoing restoration until 1999. After its reopening, it was given its historical name. The approach of the exhibition also changed. The Chanenka estate, with its preserved historical interiors, was given over to ancient and Western art and Byzantine icons. Delft dining room, as you can see, is the late 19th, converted into the Hall of Spanish Art. The second building, together with the Chanenko house, became part of the museum. Here, art from Asia and the Islamic world is kept separately. Here is a photo of Japanese art exposition during the 2010-2015 years. The following slides illustrated the updated exposition of Japanese art and the works that make up the content of our Japanese collections: Ukiyo-e, ceramics, elements of Japanese weapons, miniature plastics. Here are several photos. They are made in the end of 2021, so it's the last visions of our permanent exposition. The main focus of the permanent expositions, you can see, of the Museum and Hall of Arts of Japan is aimed at getting acquainted with the best work of the museum and various types of art and crafts of the country. The wall of the hall are hung with work of Japanese woodcuts or Ukiyo-e. More than 240 Ukiyo-e prints are stored in our museum collection. The work of one of the graduates of the Utagawa school, Utagawa Kunisada, is most fully presented. We have more than 140 pieces of this author. It was the works that were mostly presented in the exposition in two series: 53 station of the Tokaido Road and 69 station of the Kisokaido Road. After February 24, 2022, the format of the museum work changed. In fact, the permanent exposition was closed, as you can see on the slide. So the Japan Art Hall, now the Blue Hall, as we say, which looked like this in the spring and summer of 2022, has now become a venue for temporary exhibition and other projects, and I talk about this a little later. And now I would like to tell about the museum activities until 2022 and demonstrate what exhibition and projects related to Japan have taken place here. Exhibitions on Japan were held every 2 years and usually featured works from the museum collection. In cooperation with the Embassy of Japan in Ukraine and the Ukrainian Japanese Center, the museum also demonstrated traditional crafts and artistic phenomena of Japan, such as ikebana, as you can see. A unique event was an exhibition held in several places in Ukraine, including our Chanenko Museum, dedicated to the weapons of the Ukrainian Cossacks and samurajs. Art pieces of weapons of Ukrainian Cossacks and Japanese samurai weapons from the collection of the Ukrainian Kharkiv businessman and collector Alexander Feldman were next to each other and demonstrated two distant military traditions and represented the concept of knightage in different ways. Another is the same exhibition in Lviv. We have no photos from our Chanenko archive from this exhibition about weapons, Cossacks, Ukrainian Cossacks and samurai, so I can show you only from Lviv, but it's the same exhibition that hold in our Chanenko Museum. Another exhibition which I was indirectly lucky to participate in was dedicated to the urban culture of Japan during the Edo period. From this exhibition, a unique educational program began at the museum. It named Cultural Decree. This is an excursion for parents with babies under 3 years old. It was a space for relaxing together on a mat with toys and at the same time familiarizing parents with various aspects of Japanese art. So, as I said, I was participating in this excursion, and it was my first excursion about Japanese culture, about geishas, and the Yoshiwara district in Edo, modern Tokyo. And during this exhibition and during this cultural degree program. During the COVID epidemic, the museum continued its work online. One of the ways to popularize our works was the highlights of the week section. We published our artworks with infographic that demonstrated various interesting facts about the items and its context. So on the slide, you can see the infographic with our Japanese art pieces, our highlights. As for me, I wrote text to these two Ukiyo-e prints about Japanese theater, and by Utagawa Kunisada from the series 53 Stations of Tokaido Road or Tokaido Highway, and prints with Okita from Tea House by Utamaro. Since the beginning of full-scale war, we have been forced to hide our collection. Instead, the museum continues its exhibition activity, focusing on contemporary art and other projects. We also continued our lecture activities. As you can see, a poster of two my lectures that I presented during 2022-2023. One of the selection was about also Yoshiwara district in cooperates with our big friends of our museum, Squad 17B. It's near of our museum space. And then another lection was about Bijinga genre and beauties in the Japan art. This year, the museum hosted an exhibition by Dmytro Kuprian, a Ukrainian photographer and soldier of the armed forces of Ukraine, who is currently at the front, inspired by Hokusai series 36 views of mountain Fujiyama, 36 views of Gaverla mountain. The project was an opportunity to recall Japan and art, compare the images of the central symbols of Japan with the meaning of the highest mountain of Ukraine, Gaverla, and nature for Ukrainians. As you can see, it's a poster of this exhibition and two photographs two photographs from the series by Dmytro Kuprian. It's interesting technique. He makes photo and then paint it in it by hands. Finally, I want to mention the large-scale project dedicated to the culture of Japan, which is taking place in 2018 in the Mistetsky Arsenal, Art Arsenal. It's another museum in Kyjive. The year 2018, as you know, was designated as the year of Japan in the world. There was an exhibition at the Arsenal that, in my opinion, best showcases Japanese popular culture. A modern technological country with a reverence for classic art, nature, and also traditions. That it's precisely why At the exhibition, the work of the old craftsmen were displayed alongside modern art objects by Japanese artists. The exhibition was a kind of walk through concept and phenomena of Japanese culture, on which visitors traveled through times. Images of the popular culture of modern Japan are combined with images of the popular culture of the Edo period and objects of high culture, a mix that best reflects Japan in all its beauty.